As we age, something interesting happens. The things we once pursued with urgency, status, possessions, even certain beliefs, begin to lose their grip on us. But here's the paradox. What should have been clear to us in our youth only becomes evident after years of struggle. And by that time, the opportunity to act has already passed. So let me ask you, are you living in a way that will make sense when you're 70? Or are you blindly following a path that might lead to regret? Today, I want to share with you 9 things that stop making sense after 70. Perhaps, just perhaps, it will encourage you to reconsider how you're living now. The pursuit of status can be one of the most deceptive traps. For years, even decades, people chase after titles, promotions, social recognition, and admiration from others. They tell themselves that once they reach a certain point, they will finally feel fulfilled. But what happens when they get there? More often than not, the goalpost keeps moving. The desire for validation doesn't fade, it intensifies. They find themselves stuck in an endless cycle of proving their worth, believing that their value depends on their position in society. But then, as time passes, something shifts. By the time a person reaches 70, the illusion begins to fade. The titles that once commanded respect lose their power. Retirement often strips away that professional identity. The corporate world moves on, and younger, more ambitious individuals take center stage. The awards, accolades, and achievements that once felt monumental now become distant memories. And that's when the true realization sets in. Status was never the true measure of a life well lived. What truly matters are the relationships we've built. Family who stood by us in tough times, friends who stayed when success faded, and the genuine moments of human connection we often sacrificed for ambition. So, reflect on what really holds value in your life today, because in the end, it's the love, the bonds, and the shared experiences that make life meaningful. By the time many people come to this realization, they look back and see that they spent much of their lives prioritizing things that ultimately held no real meaning. The hours lost to unnecessary meetings, the stress of climbing the corporate ladder, the sleepless nights spent worrying about what others thought, none of it added to their happiness. The cruel irony is that status is never permanent. It's borrowed, not owned. It's granted by society and can be just as easily taken away. Yet, many spend their best years obsessing over it, believing it defines their worth. But here's the beautiful truth. As we age, we begin to see that status was never the answer. By the time we reach 70, it becomes clear that the real legacy is found in the lives we've impacted, the kindness we've shown, and the wisdom we've shared. The pursuit of status is a game that can never truly be won, because the prize was never real to begin with. And that's liberating. For much of life, people are consumed by the opinions of others. From an early age, they're conditioned to seek approval, first from parents, then from teachers, peers, colleagues, and society at large. The fear of judgment shapes their choices. They hesitate before speaking their mind, second-guess their decisions, and shape their lives around what others think is acceptable or impressive. In today's world, social media amplifies this, creating an illusion that we're constantly being watched, measured, and evaluated. Every action is filtered through an invisible audience, and the pressure to maintain an image becomes overwhelming. But as we grow older, something shifts. By the time we reach 70, we begin to see the absurdity of it all. The opinions we once feared no longer hold power. The people we tried so hard to impress are either preoccupied with their own struggles or have faded from our lives entirely. The judgments that once felt so piercing become irrelevant, and we realize something profound. Most people were never truly thinking about us in the first place. They were too busy battling their own insecurities and trapped in their own concerns. Looking back, it becomes painfully clear how much energy was wasted on unnecessary worry. The hesitation to take risks, the avoidance of pursuing passions, the silence kept in moments that called for courage. These were all dictated by the imagined scrutiny of others. But here's the bright spot. Those opinions, even when they were real, never truly mattered. They didn't shape our character, didn't add depth to our experiences, and certainly didn't bring us fulfillment. What remains at 70 is not regret, but a deep appreciation for having lived authentically. We come to admire those who spoke their truth without fear, who lived their lives with conviction, unshaken by the fleeting opinions of others. And in this, we find true peace. It's never too late to embrace that truth. Those who pursued what they loved, despite criticism, are the ones who truly inspire. They are the ones who stood firm, unapologetically living their truth, not those who conformed to fit in. If this realization comes too late, the only choice left is to accept what was lost. But for those who understand it earlier, the opportunity exists to live with freedom. Freedom from the weight of others' opinions, and freedom to finally become who they were always meant to be. This brings us to another powerful truth: holding grudges. In the moment, it feels justified when someone betrays trust, speaks harshly, or acts unfairly. Resentment builds like a shield, creating a false sense of control over the pain. We convince ourselves that holding on to anger protects us, that it keeps us from being hurt again. But what we fail to see is that the grudge doesn't imprison the other person. It imprisons us. Time that could be spent in peace is wasted, replaying old wounds, and energy that could be used to create something meaningful is drained by bitterness. By the time a person reaches 70, the weight of those grudges becomes undeniable. Many of the people they resented have either moved on, changed, or no longer exist in their lives. The anger that once burned so fiercely now has nowhere left to go. And with that comes the realization: all those years spent holding on to resentment amounted to nothing. The conflicts that seemed so important at the time now feel insignificant when seen through the lens of the bigger picture of life. What becomes clear is that forgiveness isn't about excusing bad behavior. It's about releasing ourselves from the burden of carrying pain. The past cannot be rewritten, but the choice to move forward is always ours. Some reach 70 and recognize this too late, left with the regret of strained relationships and missed opportunities for reconciliation. Others, however, understand it sooner and choose to let go, allowing themselves to live with a lighter heart. In the end, resentment only ensures the past continues to control the present. The sooner it is released, the sooner true freedom begins. And then, there's the pursuit of material possessions. For years, many believe that success is measured by what they own. Bigger houses, luxury cars, expensive clothes, the latest technology. They chase these things, convinced that they will bring fulfillment. The excitement of acquiring something new creates a temporary sense of satisfaction, but it never lasts. Almost immediately, the desire shifts to something else, fueling an endless cycle of consumption. By the time a person reaches 70, the illusion fades. The possessions they once valued so highly lose their meaning. The large house feels empty, the once prized items gather dust, and the realization sets in: none of it ever truly mattered. What remains are the experiences, the moments shared with loved ones, and the impact left on others. The joy found in material things was fleeting, but the connections made along the way endure. At a certain point, people start giving things away, not because they can no longer afford them, but because they finally understand that possessions were never the source of lasting happiness. The true measure of a well-lived life isn't in what was owned, but in how deeply one lived and loved. Finally, many people spend years chasing perfection, waiting for the perfect moment, the ideal circumstances, or complete certainty before they take action. But by the time they reach 70, they realize that perfection was nothing more than an illusion. It was the very thing that kept them from seizing opportunities, from taking risks, and from living fully. The key to a fulfilled life is not perfection, but the courage to move forward despite the uncertainties. After all, it is the imperfect, messy, and beautiful moments that shape who we truly are. Life was never meant to be flawless. It was meant to be lived. The greatest memories, the deepest connections, and the most meaningful achievements all came from embracing imperfection. When we look back, regret isn't over the mistakes made, but over the chances never taken. The pursuit of perfection only delays living. And time? Time does not wait for anyone. Avoiding difficult conversations feels easier in the moment. People stay silent to keep the peace, avoid conflict, or protect their pride. But by the time they reach 70, they realize that unspoken words create more damage than honest discussions ever could. The apologies never made, the boundaries never set, the truths never shared. These led to distance, misunderstandings, and regret. Avoiding discomfort didn't prevent pain, it prolonged it. The relationships that mattered most didn't suffer from confrontation, but from a lack of communication. Think about that for a moment. What are the conversations you've been avoiding in your own life? What could they bring you? Clarity, healing, connection? Sometimes the hardest talks are the ones that will set us free. People often move through life assuming there will always be more time. More time to chase dreams, reconnect with loved ones, or start fresh. They postpone what truly matters, believing that the right moment will come later. But by 70, they realize that time was never guaranteed. The chances they thought would always be there have disappeared, and the people they intended to spend time with are gone. The regret settles in, not over what they did, but over what they didn't do. So ask yourself, what matters most to you right now? Don't wait for later, because later is never promised. Take action today. The time to live fully, to reconnect, to make the most of the moments you have, is now. Health, too, often takes a backseat to ambition, responsibilities, and daily distractions. People sacrifice sleep, ignore pain, and neglect their bodies, believing they can make up for it later. But by 70, the consequences are undeniable. The body, once taken for granted, now demands attention in ways that can no longer be ignored. Strength fades, energy declines, and simple tasks become challenges. No amount of success or wealth can buy back lost health. Let that sink in. Taking care of your body isn't optional. It's essential. Your health is the foundation of everything: your work, your relationships, your joy. Don't wait until it's too late to take care of the one thing that will carry you through life. And finally, many assume their loved ones will always be there, pushing off meaningful moments for another day. They get caught up in work distractions, personal ambitions, believing there will always be time to reconnect. But by 70, many of those people are gone, and the words left unsaid, the time not spent together, and the missed opportunities for connection become painful regrets. So, I ask you, who are the people in your life that you've been taking for granted? Have you made them a priority? Because the greatest loss isn't just losing loved ones. It's realizing too late that they should have been the priority all along.